And I think Mabilo will come later. Thank you very much, in that order.
No, thank you so much, Chairperson, and Mary, myself, with your input earlier on in welcoming the Minister and the Deputy Minister to the meeting, and emphasize that indeed we were not happy in the last meeting as the committee. So it's not your issue alone. I want to emphasize that we were not happy to a point where we suggested that we will have to sacrifice today in between everything that we're doing so that we're here, because we know that it's difficult to get minister, especially on Wednesdays, because we're told that it's cabinet day. Chair, I don't know, man, before I make my input, if you will allow me to ask the DDG a question that is yes or no, so that at least I know that I don't have to waste time. If it's yes, then I don't have to waste time. Okay. DDG, in terms of the number of workshops that you have held, do you know how many you have to date, the workshops? Do you have that information with you? And if you do you know how many people have attended these workshops? If you have, I mean, there's one that says we were in KZN. Do you know how many people were in KZN that came to the workshop? That's the question I just want to.
Thank you, Chairperson. We don't have the total number in terms of attendees, but what we do know, it ranges from 100 to 150, depending on the sessions. So far, in the different provinces, we have held up to 10. That is the combination of the department and the DTIC, and we still plan to have more. But I think, as I indicated as well, municipalities themselves are also hosting them. Okay. We can consolidate that information in terms of attendance and submit. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you so much, Chair. That helps me a lot. Because you see, Minister, when this that I'm going to say comes from a good heart, comes from a person that wants to see you and the department succeed, comes from a person that wants to see you and the department shine. And I'm disturbed, Minister, with the report, especially with the fact that it's not for the first time we're interacting with the report. We would have posed our questions, believing that when the report comes, it will come addressing the questions that we had. But the report comes and still wants us to ask questions, and it's not speaking to what we had addressed. One, I'll make you an example so that you understand what I'm talking about. The report says, in terms of the workshops, on the 29th of May, 2005, there was a workshop in KwaZulu-Natal. That's what the report says to us. But if you check at the report here, on the 29th of May, 2025, the workshop was in Velkom, Lejoli Putswa Municipality. So which one is true? Are we in KZN or are we in Velkom? I can tell you for free that to date there has been about 9 workshops, including today's one. Today is the 10th of June. Where is the 10th of June? I marked it when I was reading this report. Yeah, here. Today the report says you are in city of Mbombela, the 10th of June. There's a workshop in the city of Mbombela. And that's why I was asking, do we know how many workshops we have had and how many people have attended? And the reason I was asking this question is because the research says there are about 200,000 spaza shops or tax shops, I don't know which one is the correct term, across the country that are operating. But there are about less than 4,000 from the previous presentation of South Africans that have applied to be part and parcel of this fund. From the 200,000 plus, only less than 4,000 South Africans would have applied. What does that tell you? It tells you that almost 196,000 spaza shops in the country are run by non-South African citizens. And the amount of money that is generated by this 200,000 plus spaza shop is almost 180 billion. From the 180 billion, we have less than 4,000 South Africans playing in that space. That's the research that we have. So I have already asked about where were you? Were you in KZN or were you in Velkom on the 29th of May? And the unfortunate part is that these questions will not assist because it's not only the Department of Small Business that is doing this workshop. It's also the DTIC and the municipality. So let me not ask these questions because I wanted to check cost to benefit analysis. how much you spend in convening these workshops, and the number of people that turns out, the type of medium that you use, how much do you spend in terms of local community radio stations, local newspapers, in order to mobilize people to come to these workshops. But let me go to this one, Minister. Time and again, we speak about DDM, and that the DDM will assist for single, approach in terms of how government must work. We streamline the work of government between local, provincial, and national. And the unfortunate part is that everything and anything that you and the team are planning to do, you have to do it in the municipality. That's unfortunate. There's nowhere else that you are going to do it. Because the people that you are servicing belong to a certain municipality. And you are agreeing that at times you do not have dedicated public works, public representative or public, what do you call these people who work for the municipality, or officials that are dedicated to their craft. And it impacts on whatever it is that you want to do. And with the DDM, the DDM probably wanted to streamline that so that we have people who are dedicated to assist South Africans in the municipalities that they come from. The biggest problem I have with this project that you are doing is that the honors are not with you for it to succeed. The honors are with the municipal officials. Because this thing of verification and what must be done by municipal officials. And we all know that the municipalities, when it comes to issues of bylaws, they're not that strong. And this is where you need bylaw units. Now, we're going to Provincial Week very soon in terms of oversight of the National Council of Provinces. All members, there are 11 of us coming from different provinces. We can give ourselves tasks and say each member, when we come back, you must have visited about 20 spaza shops just to check the compliance without engaging with the municipality, without engaging with the province. Just go there as a delegation from a province. In any area, if it's in Northern Cape, just go to Katu and check the number of tax shops that are compliant. And when we come back and we share that information, you will realize that out of 20 per province, 3 or 4 will be compliant. And that's not your fault. That's not your shortcoming. It's the municipal fault. It's the municipal shortcoming. Now, I don't know, Minister, at what point will you be able to make the executive mayors and the speakers, or what they call troika in municipalities, including their councillors, to understand the importance of ensuring that the bylaws are effective and are alive. Because any program that you are going to do, the unfortunate part is that you can't call them to your office. Because I'm sure if you were to call them to your office and everything was to be done somewhere in your office, this thing will succeed. But it needs municipality. Because these tax shops are based in a particular municipality. Take the municipality of Mfuleni, for argument's sake. If we were to check how many, because I see here you went to Mfuleni, Sebokeng on the 3rd of June. I'm just interested to find out how many people turn out, because the issue that you are raising of fraud in terms of marriage arrangements, it's there, and you can't run away from it. And it's there because people probably, they're hungry, they don't have money, so if they're offered 5,000 on the spot, they will do it. I mean, we have seen people who work at the ports of entry, allowing people without papers to get into the country for a mere 100 rands or 200 rands. So you can imagine if it's 5,000 rand. So the report goes further to say, the CEO, thank you for enlightening. I was not even aware that the CFAs are not on a no longer there. And imagine I'm sitting in this committee, but I was not even aware. I want us to go back and emphasize that the fund is for South Africans that owns tax shop. And because that's what the report said to us. And those that were naturalized prior to 1994. Because we don't want South Africans to find themselves in a situation where there's a gentleman that I know who used to play for Orlando Pirates in the early 90s called Etienne Ntsunda. He might have had a child here. And the child today qualifies because he or she was born in South Africa, but he carries a surname that is foreign to South Africans, and then there's a problem. And then we are told corruption and. So let the message go out that it's for South Africans and those that were naturalized prior to 94, so that it's clear. It says here in you have had 12,849 applications, or people that would have visited the site or something like that, and 5,522 are the applications that have been processed, and 838 are the applications that have been finalized. And you then say the figure might have gone up because of these other issues, almost to 900 plus. Now, with that number, 12,000 to 800, it's not even 1,000 from the 12,000. It's not even 1,000. It then makes us to understand why we have less than 4,000 people in South Africa that have participated in this thing. And it seeks to say, CEO, you are encouraging people to buy in bulk with this process. But you are giving them funding or assistance individually. So how are they going to buy in bulk when they're being assisted individually? As opposed to maybe clapping them together area by area to say, in this area we've got so many spaza shops, let's clap them together. The same thing that we did with Nedbank. So we clap them together, they buy, the minister calls it a stokvel of some sort. So they buy as a stokvel as opposed to buy individually, whilst you were seeking to ensure that they buy in bulk. So for me, I just want us to address those issues because there are so many things that I wanted to speak to, but I'm sure my honorable members will also speak to them because I don't want to be too long on the platform. But please, let's get our facts in order because the information that you give us is what we consume. And one thing that I want to applaud, Minister, is that your team, and this is something that other ministries are not doing, and we're fighting with them. Whenever you receive an invite to come before the meeting, your team immediately prepare reports and send it in time. We received this report sometime last week for today's meeting, and that please keep it up. Don't let go of it because other ministries you get the report today at 5:15 in the evening for a meeting that is tomorrow at 10, and it makes difficult in terms of engagement. And then we lash them. So as much as we lash them, let's also indicate to you that we appreciate very much that we get reports in time, and it gives us an opportunity to go through because it therefore means. What you said to us that you've got nothing to hide, it becomes true. We believe you. Because if you give me a report 7 days prior to the meeting, definitely means there's nothing to hide. But if you give me less than 24 hours, then it makes me to believe that you are hiding something. And for that, I want to thank you very much. Thanks, Chair.
Honourable Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson, and thank you, Minister and Deputy Minister, and the officials of the department. Chairperson, let me start by appreciating the Minister's presence. I can see you're tired. All of us are, in fact, and we don't appreciate being the ones putting you through this, or us through this. But we are voted here by our people, and they expect us to do the work. So let me appreciate that, and also let me appreciate, Minister, what you're saying about the competencies of the different departments in the different areas of work. Because I do understand that some of the questions that we've raised might be questions that pertains to areas of work that does not fall within your department. As you said, it might fall with Home Affairs or municipalities, which is not necessarily your responsibility. So let me also appreciate the fact that, as the chairperson also indicated, that clearly in this presentation an attempt was made to answer the questions we've raised in the let me just call it the wrong meeting. I do appreciate that a number of the questions I've raised has been answered, or an attempt was made to answer, and I would just like to appreciate that. I pick up that you are referring to registrations in the sense of registering an application. Now, that was not the registration I was referring to in my question. The registration I was referring to in my question is the registration to be a spaza shop at the municipal level. That was what I was referring to, not necessarily registration to apply for funding. And I raised the question of how does the registrations as spaza shops, the numbers correlate to registration for application? How does that two see to each other or meet each other? Minister, I want to draw your attention to two slides. Slide 26 is a slide that says, or that shows why this fund was brought into place in the first instance. And what this fund should seek to achieve. Slide 26. Let me just say my questioning would be more of a holistic approach to everything. I will not really go into detail in my questions. And then on slide 29, you've listed the qualifying criteria for spaza shops. Now, in my view, you may disagree with me, but in my view, the criteria listed on slide 29 does not necessarily address slide 26. Let me explain why I say that. You can have, or the way you go about doing this work is registering spaza shops, South African-owned spaza shops, and get them to a place of being funded so they can run as spaza shops, South African-owned. That does not necessarily exclude, or it can exclude, but it does not necessarily address foreign-owned spaza shops. Meaning, you can achieve all of slide 29 with a number of spaza shops, but still have illegal spaza shops running every day. And they don't need, and a number of them don't need your funding because they've made enough money over the number of years that they can fund themselves. So, in my view, the criteria of slide 29 does not address the issue why this fund was brought into place in the first place. If you're with me in how I think about it. Secondly, I want to come to an issue raised by the first presenter. I don't know, they refer to you as the DG, I'm not sure. Or DDG, or, okay. Sorry for not attending to that one, but you made you mentioned a situation of conflict between illegally owned spaza shops or of foreign illegally owned spaza shops versus South African owned spaza shops. And with all due respect, I am not aware of any conflict where in a community the South African owned spaza shops are fighting with the foreign-owned spaza shops. I don't know of a conflict situation there necessarily, as you put it. I do, however, foresee that there can be a conflict in terms of us and them And I think we have a couple of years ago had this xenophobic issue. But let me say, foreign-owned spaza shop killed totally South African-owned spaza shops in a number of communities. South African-owned spaza shop does not exist in a number of our communities. Chairperson, the third point for me was when we were explained earlier by, or some of our questions was answered around the licensing and how different provinces deal with the licensing differently. I thought there might be a need for us as a committee to call in provinces, or all of the provinces, to maybe hear from their side why would this one persist on going this route, and why all of them cannot come together and take one route, because we want to come to the same destination. So I would just make that suggestion. And then my next one will be on the DCP. The meeting we had when all of this was explained to us for the first time, I think it was a couple of floors upwards. I think Minister Parkstow explained to us that there's a need for South African-owned spaza shops to be able to sell products at a cheaper price, or at maybe the same price that foreign-owned spaza shops is selling products. And I take it's from there that this notion arose or came about, where we need to take DCPs, bulk buying, and to cheapen the products so that our spaza shops, when I say our, I mean South African-owned spaza shops, can also sell products at a relatively cheap price. Otherwise, that competition would also kill the situation. But now, if DCPs, if we say, like the minister end of her presentation earlier, if we say we're not going to give spaza shops money, and the DCPs are going to supply the products to the spaza shops, how are we going to manage the pricing situation? Because we still need spaza shops X to sell toilet paper at a relatively competitive price. But how are we going to monitor that pricing situation? You, CEO, earlier took us to two slides of the DCP criteria. An awful lot of criteria you have there. Some of it, however, create the impression with me that these DCPs also need to help managing and monitor the spaza shops. So they are not only benefiting in the stock part of the fund. They are not only sharing in the stock part, they will then also be sharing in the other two sections of the fund. So in the now defunct meeting, you presented us with the slide 7, which now is in this presentation spread over two slides, slide 33 and slide 34. But on that slide 7, I think it was 29 million that was indicated on that slide as stock, which I then made a rough sum of saying that means each DCP would at least share a 10 million cut, more or less, out of it, which now then means if they are sharing in the other two as well, it means their 10 million might now end up going to 15, 20 million each. The slide 49 issue of the areas where the workshop is done, I am a permanent delegate representing the Western Cape, and the two areas you identified in Western Cape is Garden Route and Central Karoo. That is the two most eastern parts of the Western Cape. Nothing in the West Coast, nothing in the Metro, nothing in the Overberg or the Southern Cape. It's just, or Theewaterskloof is only the far eastern side. So I would just like to know, do you plan to come to the other areas as well, or what's happening to that? Then the issue of the marriage arrangement situation. Minister, as a South African, born and bred, with sisters and mothers and daughters, this to me is just another word for slavery. Our women are being enslaved by foreigners in such a way to legalize their stay here. And poverty creates this situation down there, and I'm saying down there because where we are, we earn a salary of some sort. Our people down there don't, and they resort to stuff that we would never do. We cannot comprehend. But for them to put bread on the table, they resort to the most funniest of things to get their bread on the table. So for me, that situation is pretty serious, and I don't know what we will do as a government or as a country to get the intervention there. I would end off by coming to slide 33 and 34. And the first thing that springs to my mind is on slide 33, all right, let me first go to this one. We have 9 provinces in this country. We have, however, 10 rows. The first row is saying not specified, 4,346. Of which 57 is black owned. So 4,300 is other owned. Let me just say other owned, not black. But what's jump out of me first is number, the second column, number per province, total at the bottom 5572, total stock 38,500,000. The next slide say number per province 838, total stock 31 million. Now that's too much of a gap between number per province, it's close to 5,000 gap. And yet the millions are very close to each other, both over 30 million. That one jumps at me, it doesn't really make sense for me. And then 5572, black owned 1155. Let me accept that it's correct. My understanding of black is African, Indian, and colored, all three. So 4,400 then is white, according to my understanding. And I hope I'm wrong in that understanding. But can someone just explain to me how 800 can draw 31 million and 5,000 38 million? My mind is too small. I cannot get my mind around it. Let me stop there, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Farmer. If you can just switch off your mic, please. Colleagues, can I just ask before we get Honourable Pino on the platform to keep track of your questions, because I tried, but there are so many, in the event that they're not answered at the end of the presentation. Honourable Pino?
Thank you, Chairperson. Seeing as the Minister just left, I'll then direct my questions to the Deputy Minister. Hopefully she will fill in the Minister, or my questions will be answered and taken note of by the colleagues in front of me. Colleagues, let me just give you a sense before I start from where I'm coming from. I think we all can remember, maybe not you, but definitely us sitting on this side of the aisle, the debacle we had with the budget in the beginning of the year, where it took 3 tries to approve it. With that being said, the reason for that is a shortfall. There was a budget shortfall. And why is there a budget shortfall in the country? Not enough taxpayers, not enough tax. Now with that in mind, colleagues, like my honourable colleague from Modise pointed out, it's 180 billion rand industry. 180 billion rand. And as government and government representatives, at all times we need to be formalizing the informal. Why? To add to the tax base, so we can deliver services to the people of the country. And that was part of my big frustration with your department, sir. Not you directly, but the DDG and the rest of the team, is we have a golden opportunity here to register thousands of informal traders. On CIPC, that takes an hour to register there. It takes an hour. And you clearly pointed out in your presentation for me, yeah, it's only for over 80,000. I understand that. But how do you know when they apply? Do they prove to you that they don't meet the threshold? How do you know? You don't know. They just say no on the box, that's all. So I'm saying as government, we have an opportunity here to register thousands of people and get control, or not control necessarily, but formalize the informal sector. And that's the same with the tax registration. You're also making those two, that part not compulsory. You're giving it both the CIPC registration and the tax registration a 6-month transitional period. And that for me was very frustrating, because imagine I'm a spice shop owner. I apply for the fund, I'm awarded the contract or the funding. I get the funding within a period of 2-3 months. I go and buy my stock, then I disappear. What control do you have over me after 6 months to go and register for CIPC or for? You've got no control. Otherwise, are you saying you're going to come take back the stock? You're not going to do that. So I'm frustrated about why you included that 6-month transitional period. Why not just remove that part? As a department and government, you've got a golden opportunity to register thousands of people and increase the tax base of this country so we can serve the people. That's my frustration. And it goes beyond me why it's not compulsory. And yes, there's tax reasons why it's not, and certain sole mandates, it's not a PTY, that's fine. But this is taxpayer fund, people. The standard should be higher. It's not your money. It's the people out there who voted for us. It's their money we're using to pay for these spaza shops. And we must put the standard very high. And why not make it compulsory? I don't think it's unreasonable. I mean, there's nobody in this room, I'm sure, is against this. The problem is, because at the end of the day, what we want to achieve is we want to increase our market share as South Africans of the 180 billion. That's what we want to do. And increase South African market share within this community of spaza shops. And we support that, of course we do. But let's also use it as an opportunity to grow our tax base and register these people. And like I said, I'm going to say it again, make the informal formal. Chairperson, then I want to get to Setfa. You spoke a lot about you are overseeing our DCPs. You know, you've got about 10 slides there talking about DCPs, and then luckily there's one that's naming them. I was wondering when it's going to come up, because in the previous presentation, as my colleagues will remember, they were not named. Their names were in secret, held in secret for some reason. Well, at least we have their names now. iSpaza, AZL Media, and Tradeport. Now, I would request, Chairperson, a full breakdown of these three companies. They're doing business with the state. I think it's only fair we know where their shareholders are, where the directors are. I think that's reasonable. I mean, they are going to be receiving 150 million of South African taxpayers' money. We want to know who's been allocated those contracts. And again, I want to go back to this. And it wasn't, you not dance around it, but I wasn't 100% clear how you got to it. How did you choose these three? Precisely. Yes, you went out and you saw people, but how did you get to these three? Did you go up an open tender or was it a closed tender? Just give me an indication on that, please. And colleagues, you indicated, the spaza shops or the DCPs is receiving this 150 million to buy stock for the spaza shops. But just remember, and Chairperson, I think this is very important. It's not like the DCPs is getting 150 million and they're buying 150 million worth of stock and giving it to spaza shops. Of course, they're putting a markup on there, a handling fee. Otherwise, why would they do it? They're making a profit there somehow. There's no way. If the DCP is buying a loaf of bread, for example, for 20 rand, he's not selling that same piece of bread to the spaza shop for 20 rand. He must have a role there. He's not doing it for free. Somewhere he's making a 10%, 5%, whatever. And listen, it's a free economy. But I just want to know what are their markups on the bulk buying of foodstuffs for spaza shops. Because they're obviously making something of this 150 billion. Or is that maybe on top of that 150 billion? Maybe you could just clarify that. Maybe it is. Maybe it's maybe you're paying the markup on top of that 150 billion. That's also possible and reasonable. But I just need that information, please. Chairperson, let me just make sure I've covered everything, because otherwise I'm going to be very frustrated with myself. Go to page 25, please. Presentation 25. Thank you. See, there's a contradiction here as well. If you go on the right-hand column, you see qualifying spaza shops, general dealers must register with the CIBC, South African Revenue Service, and SARS Unemployment Insurance Fund, in cases where they're not registered with these organizations. Just give me clarity, is that the same with it, or is that one just expanded on and it's giving you the caveats as well? Is that what's happening there? And again, Minister, and this is again, you left, I'm sure you went to the toilet or something, but that's fine. My goal here is, like I said, to increase our tax base. Let's get these people formalized. Let's make sure we as government have the information so we have more money to service our people. Thank you, Chair. That's all.
Thank you very much. Honourable van den Berg.
Good evening to everyone. Right, I have to make it clear that I don't have a spaza shop and I don't plan to own one. And my questions, therefore, is directed to assisting our country in moving forward. Minister, lately we have been calling for radical transparency, but your department has not been very transparent with the NCOP. Nearly 70% of the questions posed to your department has gone unanswered. Now, the problem is with the human nature is that you distrust something that is foreign to you. And therefore, I have to ask if your department is committed to transparency, and if you will please answer the questions that is asked to the Minister in the weekly and monthly process. Right, then we go on. Now, thank you for working on explaining the verification and compliance issues on the spaza shops. And I wish to just mention that, is that not the purpose for the fund in the first place? And then on slide 33, you have mentioned and I need some clarity, the non-specified part of the application, 4,346, compared to the other ones that has been dealt into the provinces. Now, I need to know, is that because they have not given their addresses, or why is that unspecified? Are you still in progress? We need to know. It is specified in terms of if it's black-owned or female-owned, but if you just can clarify that to me, I would be thankful. Now, you have initially skipped from slide 36 to 47. That made me wonder why. And I need to go to the delivery channel partners. You know, they are the ones to benefit the most from this arrangement, and we should be discussing them more. My question to you is, why do the spaza shop owners not have more than one supplier? Would that not be enabling them to reach a far fairer competition in the market? We did ask the question in the previous committee meeting, and it was said that there will be only one supplier per spaza shop. Now, are we not enslaving the spaza owners by forcing them to buy from one supplier? What allocation criteria was used in the process? Was it open to public participation? Who are the owners of these DCPs? Was a legal process followed in this appointment of the DCPs? Then, do you have performance agreements with the DCPs? Suppliers that regulate delivery costs and markups towards the spaza shops. You know, if you manipulate the price of a product, the profit can be manipulated even though you have a fixed discount structure or a fixed 5% delivery cost and a 7% profit margin. And it is open to a lot of problems, especially if there's only one supplier per province. You are speaking about the 115 million that will go to the spaza shops, but you need to please explain to me exactly what happens to the 300 million that's left in the fund afterwards. Then there's so much information available from studying the electronic ordering systems that will be used. For instance, a proper analysis will show what the funds are used for. Is it used for trading? Is it used for personal consumption? What is the repeat business? What's the profitable lines? What's the consumer habits? And are you as a department geared to analyze this and utilize this information? Then also, how will you be able to absorb the cash that's being used at the spaza shops back into the cart and buying systems for reciprocal buying and deliveries? Because the money has to go back into the system for the DCP to keep on continuing the business after the initial funds have been made available. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van der Berg. Honourable Mabilu.
Good evening, Chair, members on the platform, the Minister and DM, DG and all officials. I think first and foremost I want to express my appreciation to the report and the background and historical context given by the Minister. I think for me, I've gone through the report. I think I like the format in terms of outlining the challenge, the progress, and the situation. It's a status analysis report. So some of my concerns that I raised in the previous meeting, including my reservations and misgivings, I think they have been taken on board. So as a result, I will not be able to raise them because sufficient ground has been covered in terms of the issues that I raised last time. The first thing that I would just want to raise, it will just be a few, will be, Minister, how seamless, smooth, coherent is the stakeholder partnership between the two departments, yourself and the DTIC, immigration, home affairs, SAPS, etc. I think it could be an ideal model if it is indeed seamless and efficient with result-driven, as opposed to the silos. The second one will pertain to the question of municipalities as key stakeholders, to say now there are 3 sections that must approve the applications. It will be your fire, it will be your health inspectors, and the land. In the same vein of efficiency, are they housed in one roof so that the applicant is not further frustrated? This X approve, but you are waiting for the other 2 to approve. Are we having a situation where that all 3 can take a firm decision under one roof in an efficient way? I know that is local government, municipalities. But Minister, equally in terms of slide number 9, I am worried, bullet number 3, around the time frames. The time frames pertain to 3-4 months. I can just make an example that in the debate we had last week, some of us pointed out that the turnaround between Tanzania and Rwanda in terms of the border things and other matters were first about 3-4 months. It has been reduced to 6 days. Now, why do we have such a long time frame of 3 to 4 months? Can't we incrementally reduce it in phases from 4 months, 3 months, etc.? So that's the first question, because that delay is really unnecessary. With regard to slide 10, Minister, regarding the verification and the due diligence, the emphasis is put mostly on the inspectorate. And we know there's lack of capacity in terms of human resource. So how then are we going to circumvent such a constraint? I know it's also local government, but my questions are interrelated in all the aspects. The same will go to slide 13, bullet number 3, in relation to the recommendation of 6 months. So I'm just basically around those issues worried about the time frames that are too long and cumbersome. The other matter will be that 28 February was the deadline of the spaza shop, and I know subsequently the president did extend. What is the state of affairs, or what obtains now currently, and when is going to be the timeline? I think with regard to the people with disabilities who are not doing very well in all the provinces, in all the sectors. I mean, 1 is 0, 1, 2, 4, 3. And for me, that is an anathema to me. How then do we mainstream that process by working together, getting the database from the Department of Social Development? Because I don't think there are people who are not interested, who are disabled to participate in the broader economy, etc. So my last 2 or 3 questions will relate to the lack of uniformity in the provinces. I think my colleague has already raised it, and it is a matter that we should look into. But I'll be concerned, Minister, and your team that in terms of your articulation that says the majority of spaza shops owners and informal traders are operating as sole operating entities. They might not necessarily want to convert to others. The point that I want to make, at what point are they going to grow and fly out of this informal mode? Because it's like we argue, small farmers, I know that is agriculture, but we're saying how long are they going to be for small farmers? Is this process not meant to empower them, revitalize the township economy, and then make them real entrepreneurs? That would be my concern around it. Then my last 2 issues will be one around the permission that all licenses that are provided by councillors will not be provided. It will not be authentic, will not be accepted, except those. What made you determine that, to come to that determination? I was under the impression that councillors are not issuing out permits, but that's the inspectorate, the health inspectors are doing that. How then do we come? I was just a little bit not sure what you want to. The last point will be around the unverified total user registration by SITFA. For me, there's no you are giving us a figure of 1,383. There's no deadline or time frame. Why are your issues just open-ended? Is there no specific time frame to say by this time we should have done that? So that is it, Honorable Chair. But I think there's still a need for us to call on people to come to the fore to register. It's a concern. It's a concern. Thank you very much for the presentation, Minister, and your team.
Thank you, Honourable Mabilu. Before I go over to myself, Honourable Farmer has indicated he missed 1 or 2 questions. Over to you.
Chair, my apologies here. I was just reminded of a question I asked in the first meeting that was not really answered yet. And I would like to ask it again. Does the department know how many spaza shops are foreign owned? And what are the consequences they're going to face for operating illegally? And then also, Minister, if the way you administer the fund is not addressing the need what the fund was created for, or the problem we had, hence the fund, yet the way you administer it still leaves a contingent outside that operates without having to apply for fund, yet they're still operating. Does that not create the possibility that we might still see children dying maybe in the future?
Honourable Sithole.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I was skeptical to raise my hand because I went outside, and when I came back, Honourable Farmer and Honourable Mabilu had so many questions written, so I did not want to ask something that they already asked. But let me just appreciate the presentation, and also to appreciate the Minister and the DM that whenever we request you, you are always here. That one we must appreciate. We cannot always you know, be negative and slam you, but we must also say it out loud to say that we really do appreciate your presence at all times. By the way, my name is Lucia Sitole from Northwest Province. Now, my question is that I saw the presentation, especially on the slide 33 and 34. Now, what I need to know is that, because I saw that in the Northwest, the application in progress are 69. I'm from Matosana, and you were there at some point. Now, what I need to know is that we've got 4 regions in the Northwest. Now, it will be helpful that next time when we get this kind of presentation, we get the municipalities also, because we are permanent delegates sent here by our provinces. Now, it will really assist if we can see at what municipalities and so on, because the last time when we had this presentation, when we requested them to go back, when I went home, I started to ask questions, especially on the issue of disposal shops, registration and so on. Because the last time I've asked a question around the issue of, I've got this smaller, they call it a informal village something. It's people from, they were staying in a hostel, we moved them to a new village. Now those people, the 89% are South Africans. It's only few numbers that are not South Africans. But I can tell you, the spaza shops that are there are about 8 of them. They are owned by South Africans, but they have no idea about the registration of the spaza shops. Now, what I need to know is that when you go to the municipalities and especially at the district level, do you monitor all this presentation when they are done, or the report that is given? Are they saying that they are doing this presentation way? Because if I'm owning a spaza shop, it says that Sylvia, she's trying to put food on the table for her children. Now, when you call me to a meeting that I'm supposed to spend 56 rand to come and listen to you at a presentation in town, than coming to a smaller hall where I'm staying, especially in a rural area, then I will opt to stay at home, but not go there. But if they can go on the ground a little bit to our people where they are, and give this presentation and assist them where they can assist, because that new village, they don't even have a rent statement. I've raised it the last time to say that they don't even have a rent statement. They only get these letters of recommendation from the councillors to say that this person is residing in house number or a block number, this and this only. Now, this thing of councillors giving also this thing of permits, if it is true, it needs to stop. Councillors are not any much. Now, advantage is going to be taken, and it's going to be very dangerous, because we are going to, it's like we are promoting corruption now. Because someone will say to me that, give me this, I will give you a permit with this so much amount. Now that one, it must stop, and it must go straight to the municipality, not, even though I know very well, even in the municipality, because corruption is everywhere. But let us find a way of managing the situation through the municipalities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Honourable Kennedy, I see you looking at me. You didn't have your hand up. Would you like to ask a question?
Greetings to the department. I would like specifically to comment to slide number 30, qualifying criteria under compliance with legislation. concerning food preparation and health and safety standard, as we put it in here. I just want to have a sense whether the department is actively seeking to address issues such as the sale of expired or counterfeit products. Whether measures are in place to monitor that with relevant legislation, particularly regarding food safety and hygiene. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Kennedy. Before I pose questions, I would just like to ask from you, Minister, and the DM and the departmental officials, your time. We have booked until 8:30, but I just want to know if we go beyond that, would it meet with your requirements, or do you have certain transport logistical problems if we do go past 8:30?
Definitely not, Chair. We're budgeted for 9 o'clock, actually.
Thank you very much for that. Okay. The majority of questions that I had have now been posed, but I have a problem or a question relating to the shortage of building and environmental health officers within municipalities. And I'd like to know how your department intends to ensure compliance with the food safety and health standards in this regard, whether there have been any engagements between COCTA and your department, because this is why we're speaking to the 500 million, is because of the outbreak of the loss of lives amongst our children. And then the second question on that is the immediate interventions that you might have. Will they be implemented, and then when? And these are like the conditional licensing mobile inspection units. Are there something like that on the table, or interdepartmental task teams to fast track the enforcement of health and safety compliance so that we don't have any more lives lost? And then Honourable van den Berg also raised the question, and I am also very concerned about it, is that SETFA is speaking to the 150 million of the 500 million, and this completely fails to account transparently for me. I would then like to know the 350 million that is remaining outside SETFA. Is it going to be allocated to additional DCPs, or is it earmarked for separate interventions such as infrastructure, refurbishment, or training? If so, what are the timelines and the targets? And then has any of the, or any portion of the 350 million been transferred to other entities like DTIC or the NEF or municipalities? And if so, under what criteria and with what expected outcomes? Now, with regard to the districts that have been identified, I'm now speaking from an Mpumalanga outlook. We have 3 districts, but you've only identified 2 districts. Now, what happens to the people that fall within the one district that hasn't been mentioned if you go out on your road shows? It's unfair towards those people because they cannot get to those places because it's very far from them. And then if you could just also please explain to me these road shows, what has the return on investment been? What does it cost the department to initiate a road show? And as the DGD said, sometimes it's 100 people, maybe it could be less. Has it really had any return on investment on the money spent for these road shows. And then Honourable Pina raised a very important question. We now have the names of your DCPs, but that's not the initial question or the only question that we asked. We asked for a complete breakdown. We want transparency on how it was decided that these three would be the DCPs. And then Honourable Sotoli touched on people not knowing about the Spaza Shop Transformation Fund, if I can call it that, or Assistance Fund. Now, I was in a town, Sabi, on Friday, and I was speaking to the people in a very, very informal area called Poller Park. Now, there's absolutely nothing there for them on whether they knew about this Spaza Shop Fund, and nobody had heard of it. So could I just hear from the DDG whether when you go out and do these roadshows or do workshops, do you just concentrate on the cities or the bigger towns and exclude the rural areas? Now, coming and speaking from my point of view, there are areas around Blyde River Canyon, it's known as the Northern Villages. They have never ever heard of it. And their closest town is 60 kilometers. And there is one Spaza shop in Laroro that has to serve the whole of Matabidi, the whole of Laroro, and the whole of Marumela. Can't work. And the Spaza shop owner there in Laroro has never heard of this fund. So if we can just get some feedback on that, how you get the message across to the most rural areas. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, honorable members, for those questions that you have posed. Probably let me start by acknowledging that we may not have reached everyone, understanding the nature of the department as the national department that does not have footprint on the ground, but relying, of course, on the agencies SEDA and SIFA, which is why we emphasize that we do this work with local municipalities whom have representation of every ward through the councillors, the CDWs, and the other spheres or the other functionalities that are found at that level. We emphasize this because, as Honorable Modise did say, when as government we took a decision that there's a need for us to have an integrated approach on development or implementation by establishing the DDM, we were meant to address exactly those gaps. Indeed, we don't have people. People reside at the local level. That's why even in all the interventions that we provide, we will say those that are interested in our products or services, they can go to the local municipality in the LED unit. That's the message we always give. Or they can go to a nearest what used to be SEDA or SIFA offices, which is SIDFA. Because we have an appreciation of the fact that we have about 300 plus officials, and they can't afford to be in each and every village. This is why we are saying the interventions that we provide require a multi-stakeholder approach. Now, we are focusing on net joints at a national level in terms of the compliance, the other things that are affecting the Spaza shop interventions. But I spoke of the Township and Rural Enterprise Program that we are driving, which means we have no choice but to work with traditional leaders. And we are working with traditional leaders to a point that on Friday the 13th we'll be signing our memorandum of agreement, because we are not able to only focus on the townships or on the cities. We have a responsibility to give effect to the constitutional mandate that we have of not leaving anyone behind.
And that has to be done by bringing all the stakeholders. We partner with various business associations in order to make sure that we reach out to as many businesses as possible. We're not only relying on the work that is being done by the departments, the business associations themselves, they run webinars for their members because we have an appreciation that we can't be everywhere. So the DDG reports on the work they've done only as the national department working with DTIC. But the work, as the DDG did indicate, continues at a local government level, municipalities. We've seen the MMCs for LED driving the work. We've seen certain mayors driving the work that needs to be done. Now, how do we deal with some of the challenges in relation to compliance? I say this all the time, that when we look at the spaza shop, we're not only looking at the product that is being sold. We look at the entire ecosystem. Where does the spaza shop trade from? What are the implications or the standards in terms of infrastructure and other services? And how is it run? And all of this, they impact on the running of a successful spaza shop. Whilst we're looking at the issue of addressing the pricing issues, one may not be able to cut by 20 cents simply because the quality of the road infrastructure does not give that person an opportunity because it's costly to drive in particular areas. This is why we said we've got to make sure that we utilize whoever the administration chooses that is closer to the spaza shops. We have run the program. It was shown that the one where we were saying we're providing 10,500 rands for spaza shop. When we went to the communities when we were doing road shows, they said, Minister, you have made us to travel from here in Lusikisiki and go and collect food or stock in Kokstad. And this is the amount we had to pay. That's why we were clear that in this time, we must not repeat those. Let's try to minimize as much as possible. That's why I indicated earlier that in the township task force, one of the things we requested was the list of distribution channels or centers and the wholesalers that the food manufacturers have themselves. So that we're able to say, if you are appointing Stella, if footprint here, how far is it? How closer is it to the people that are there? Honorable Mdisa, you are saying other questions were not answered. The team will talk to the number of workshops, but I try to just give the accountability in terms of what we have done. There is this that you're raising in terms of the number of spaza shops that are in the country. The Accenture report talks of 150,000 spaza shops, and it tells you majority are foreign-owned already. Now, when we saw the opportunity after the incident that happened, we said it is our opportunity to come closer and ensure that we get to know who is trading. Now, you are trying to kill two birds with one stone by forcing or giving an opportunity to the bodies that are responsible for ensuring compliance or do inspections. Because these people must now come to the municipality and register. And indeed, in the first days, we did see and get reports that most people that went there were the foreigners. I recall when I went to Kwamashu, I found lots of them mixed with few elderly women. And I spent time in the queue trying to understand, where do you come from? I come from Pakistan. Why are you here? All of them, they have the, what's the paper they use? The asylum status. And when last did you go home? Of course, they will forget. So they will mention, and how did you go home and come back, but you are a refugee? How does it happen? Then this is when, because we cannot be able to identify compliance if we're not with the officials, but you can know the basics, which is why we bring all the teams when we go and visit. So we pass and then we see these elderly women and then I ask them, Mama, so you are running a spaza? Where is your spaza shop? And then she mentions, all right, so where do you buy your stock? She can't answer. I'm like, oh, you're running a spaza, but you don't know where you buy your stock? And I can tell without a confirming fast that she's fronting. Then I remind her, do you know of Section 42 of the Immigrations Act? That you do not have any right to aid anyone who's in this country, especially illegally, but even those that are here legally, you can't assist them with things that do not talk to the visa status. Because you may be here legally, but it doesn't mean that you have a right to trade. That's why there's different visas. So I try to explain this to them. When she got shocked, because I'm like, I'm going to call this police to take you, because we are with the immigration officers here. And she then panics, she goes back, and then you see majority of them leaving. They didn't know. The point I'm trying to raise is that we have put laws in place, but I don't think we've done much awareness for people to know. Although the laws that we have a number of participants participating, but the number of participants that we're talking about, if it's 100, it's 100, and that can be 100 out of 5,000 in a ward. This is why, from the parliamentary perspective, we then establish the parliamentary constituency offices to bring the law closer to the people to interact with the members of parliament and members of the provincial legislatures to understand what is happening in their own areas. And these are the structures that we bank on when we do this work, to say, as the department will come here, at the PCO level, like other MPs have invited us to say, we've mobilized stakeholders, send your officials to come and share the information on the work that you are doing. And we're doing that because we would like to reach out to many people as much as possible with the little resources that we have. So the 4,000, therefore, that you may be referring to say 4,000 registered, which means 196 do not go. Others are scared. They can't go and register. They're scared because they're here illegally. But what the chair has raised in terms of enforcing the compliance and the strategies of how to increase the pool of inspectors is what we must pay attention to. Because this exposed, we were aware of the weaknesses, but the extent we didn't see. We saw it when we decided to say we want to have 5 inspections. We couldn't have those because we didn't have enough teams to do that. Of course, at this level, we go as national, but then we then said, let's cascade it to even the local joints because they are the local joints. But still, in terms of the personnel, which is why you may have seen many adverts. I know Minister Math has advertised about 20,000 inspectors, because she is trying to respond to the challenge that we're faced with, to say there's many businesses wherein they are employing especially illegal foreigners or legal foreigners, but they're not supposed to be working there, as we know the quotas in terms of our Employment Act and all of those. So it opens us to a lot of things, including saying, was this the right decision that we took through the National Health Act to say the issue of the health workers, the environmental health workers, must be at local municipality level or district municipality level without transferring the function with the personnel and the funds? What does this teach us as the people that make the law? When we are having these discussions of wanting to address a particular challenge, do we look into the entire ecosystem of what we are trying to address? I'm aware that maybe those that made the proposals to say remove it from the health department to local, they were trying to bring inspectors and the health workers closer to the people. But then what was not followed up was the capability and the capacity at the local municipality level, including the budget that must follow the function. As we say, mandate follows the structure and therefore the budget that goes. And these are the things we're beginning to talk about, including Minister Mzwaledi when we talk to him, because he sees it as a gap. Now, for you to reverse that, it means you must go and repeal that particular clause. Now, we begin to engage as the ministers, listening to our technical teams also, what are the gaps? how best can we go about this? We are looking at those because we've got to be convinced that indeed, if they go to health, will they have the capacity? Will that reason that had made them to remove the function not come back? We're looking at those, and all of those, they require extensive engagements and all of that. I do believe there's cost or return on investment on the workshops, no matter 20 people that will go to. If people are not informed, people will not benefit. So for us, it's more on the impact of those that we are reaching out to, which is why I said we are complementing the physical workshops with webinars, radio stations. We do lots of community radio work through GCIS, but we're trying to get the message out there. Those that are watching TV, if you had watched this, what is it called? In 161, there have been people who are coming here. Hi, we are from the Department of Small Business Development. We're coming to check because we're trying to use all the platforms in order to reach out to the people, even on social media, as I indicated. So for us, there's a return on investment, because we believe that when we've told or we've reached 20 people, they're able to share, let alone that these days people are very selfish about information. They don't share it. But we bank also on the public representatives as they engage during their Izimbizo and the other activities, public activities that they have for their communities, to share those information, which is why we also allow the teams to say, if there's a PCO that is inviting us, because we recognize PCO as part of the work that we do as the ecosystem, if then they are invited, and then our teams can go and register people there, which is why we have appointed business regulation officers, the 52 that I spoke about per district, but then they do the work with the municipalities and the structures that are there. We have active PCOs that are there. Will municipalities be effective in implementing bylaws? And thus, the reason I don't know is simply because there's a lot that is a challenge. That's why we continue to talk about building a capable state. Because even in the areas where we have personnel, there's the capability issue, not a capacity issue. This is why we have said, let's partner with the School of Governance and UJ to be able to provide LED workshops and the qualification. Because everyone must have an understanding so that those that are in those units, they can be taken through what is expected of them. Because the tendency is just to throw whoever that is there, they must go there, and then you don't look at whatever. It's very few municipalities that are able to master it. eThekwini is one of those. And we're trying to learn from the ones that are doing it very well, but we're also trying to address the gaps by partnering with the LGCTA and the other stakeholders to say, can we really try to bring these interventions? The intention of the fund, as we indicated, as much as we do talk to the influx of the foreigners or foreign nationals in the spaza shop economy, the registration process and the establishment of the fund cannot address that. But what the registration will achieve, help us achieve, is to know who is trading. But remember, we're focusing on South Africans. Now, again, you need to enforce that compliance. It means inspectors must go and visit whoever is trading in those areas. Now, that is beyond us. That's why I said we're working as the net joints. I cited the fact that Minister Meth, from her side, has already issued an advert for 20,000 inspectors. I know others are looking at that. We're also partnering with the wholesale and retail LNGCTA to see if we can bring other unemployed graduates to the space wherein they'll be trained, and then they will assist with the enforcement. It is a challenge, a serious challenge that we have. But we do appeal to all South Africans, because if you know that Stella is with Bismarck that side, and Bismarck is not a South African but running a spaza business, at least what we appeal to people to do, if they're renting space from your area, at least you must know if this person is here legally and on what kind of visa, which is why we continue to urge South Africans to try to be loyal to their state and their people for once. It's important that we encourage that. I know apartheid is not longer here, but reality is that capture is here, and people may be out of their own land, and people may continue being slaves of people who are here illegally that we can't even trace and account for. On yes, the foreigners, they continue to run the spaza shop, as I said. So we're banking on the municipalities and the other team, as I indicated. We are trying to assist, and the CEO will talk to this. In one of the slides, as they mentioned the TCPs, they then talked to the negotiation they did in terms of the percentages on discount. Now the question that was asked by another honorable member is, if you are providing this intervention to individual spaza shop, how do you talk about bulk buying? Bulk buying is enabled by the process, that's why we're able to talk about 5%. Because you are not negotiating for one, you're negotiating for the entire number. Which is why I'm saying on the engagements that we have with them is to say, you must now stick into being organized when you go and buy. We are putting the seed that you start here already, you begin to see this, which the spaza shops have a right to check if there are other people that are offering better. But these are prices in order to promote bulk buying that have been negotiated for discount. So we're trying to do that. It's just the delivery mechanisms. We can't deliver to a group, we deliver to one, because it is one applicant that applies for the spaza shop. I didn't get the one, maybe the officials did get. The one on DCPs benefiting on stock fund and then on the other funds because they are providing training and the monitoring. I believe it is the systems that they use, because if we, for example, we're giving you a POS machine as the spaza shop, it must give us information, and then we're able to see if you continue trading, because it is in our interest to make sure that the businesses that would have supported are sustainable. Others, they take the grocery, the stock, and they donate it or they sell it, and that's the end of it. So those systems, that's why it's important to have those digital systems. Then they're able to see how active is the spaza shop, and that's the monitoring that we're talking about. So that when they provide feedback, then our teams are able to say, as we talk of both the pre-investment support and post-investment support, what is it that needs to be done? But also it assists with gathering business intelligence of what are the products that are dominant in that area. It doesn't assist us only, it also assists the spaza shop owner. From our side, it then begins to say, it means we can then assist some of them to grow and themselves become wholesalers that must provide the products, and you also begin to look at the small-scale farmers and the others that are producing the food that can be onboarded. We can't guarantee that there's not going to be any illness again or death. If you recall, the last incident was because of organophosphate, a pesticide administered under the Department of Agriculture that is not supposed to be utilized for households, but is supposed to be used in the fields and the other areas. Now, this is why I said one of the challenges is that we have these laws, but we have not made time like we do when we go to public hearings to take them back to people and explain. Even if you are breaking in, as it happens in somebody's farm, and then you begin to steal this, you must know the implications. And I know that Minister Steenhuisen is looking at that, as he was looking at the people who are licensed, but also what mechanisms can be brought on board to make sure that there's awareness, both the farmers and the other people that have access to these pesticides, because this one is not because of expiry of food, but it's because of a pesticide that was not supposed to be found on the spaza shop. Again, that goes back to the education that we are saying we must provide to the spaza shop owners to say, now you are trading with food. These are the regulations that you must meet and know. You cannot sell this if you have food. This is what you can provide. Even if you see so many rats, you must know you can't just buy because it's going to have implications to the people. The report has to be broken per municipality. I fully agree, because that will also give the members a clear understanding of where are these areas that have not gone for registration. We have the min-max with the MECs for economic development, and we also urge them to go and sit with the districts. So we get information both from COGTA and the MECs for economic development, which in turn works with the MMCs of economic development. We are not yet there to say even on the ground, but we're trying to put those structures in place, because for as long as we get information from COGTA that will say, this is the number like we have seen. COGTA will come and say, 25 spaza shops have registered, and then you get the MSs for economic development, they're saying 50. So we're trying to get all of those coordinated. That's why that DDM model works better for us, and that's why we have put now the BROs that I spoke about in each and every district to help the coordination, so that we can find accuracy, and therefore we can know who else is doing what in relation to the work that we are talking about in those areas. We introduced the issue, the honourable member is not here. We introduced the issue of registering businesses, because even those that don't want to register with CIPC, but they must be known, which is why we talk about trading permits. And then when we talk, when we talk about the 6 months now, is for those that there's a particular amount that is put, spaza shop that are making so much, more than 80,000 rands, therefore they are required to go and register. We're giving them, because we said this fund, we are assisting them to be compliant. So that's one of the compliance measures. We're giving them 6 months because there's certain things that they must then collect, although we have already partnered with the CIPC ourselves to say, get ready. I did indicate that most of the spaza shop owners and other small businesses, they're very reluctant to get their businesses formalized. They're scared of tax. And this is why we partnered with SARS to say, can you come and run tax awareness programs? Because there's a unit that is dedicated for small businesses on the taxing. So as they were showing there the different categories, we are giving them that information so that it's easy for them to go and register and not just think about it as if it's a way to punish or take money away from them. Anyway, even if they are registered, if they are not making profits, there's not much tax that we can generate, which is why through the township and rural development policy that we'll be putting to cabinet, we are outlining certain things, because we are looking at the challenges of why businesses in townships and rural areas are not growing. So the support mechanisms does not only talk to just this injection, but it also talks to the confidence of the locals that must buy and support them, but also the knowledge that they must have in terms of running and understanding the markets that they serve. When that happens, then we're able to say, how do we make sure that this money that circulates in the township gets to be used to invest, because there's limited investment that is being done in the townships and the rural areas. How do we make sure that it gets to be invested in those terms so that it eliminates some of the unnecessary costs, so that they can focus on investing in the actual business in terms of saying, I must go and fix the potholes and all the other things that they do. They focus on what they have to do in terms of investing in their business, and then there's going to be more profit, and then that's when we're able to tax them, because they'll be profitable. That's the reality. So that's why we jumped at that opportunity to say we must help them with registration and partner with the IPC. The intention is to get those that can be formalized to be formalized. The team will talk to the markup edit. My understanding was that if we have said 40,000 for the beneficiary is 40,000 worth, which means it takes into consideration the discount. And I know the teams, when they're making the presentation to us, they did say there's some management fee or something like that. They will talk to it. I think that's where they make their money, the DCPs. And in the management fees, the training, it's all these monetary reports and the other things that they will talk to. But we made sure with whatever interventions that they are putting, the cost is not transferred to the spaza shop owner, because that's the person of interest to us. The part that was talking on one of the slides that the spaza shop must register with CIPC, it was on the other old fund that we spoke about where we're providing 10,500 rands. It was 15,000, 10,500 is the loan. It's the initial fund which has been overtaken by the new fund. The 350 million, remember I said this is a joint fund, 150 million from us, which we committed towards stock. 350 going to refurbishments, furniture, and the other things, which is administered by NEF, an entity of the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. So those, as the applications come, because the platform, they are able to see the platform, they have access to it. So those that have applied specifically for stock, they come to SITFA. Those that have applied for furniture and other things, they then go to the NEF. Then we had not managed to get the information, the updated information from NEF, I believe, but the select committee can invite DTIC and NEF to give specifics, because even if we were come, we would have received numbers last week, and then by this time we don't know what's the status. And as I'm saying, definitely Minister Parks, I know, he will be keen to allow his team to come and report. We do partner with DPSA, the Disabled People of South Africa, the association, simply because of the gaps that we're talking about, that more than 1 million disabled people in South Africa don't have access to meaningful participation in the economy. There's different interventions. The DM is responsible for that work, but we do work as the department. We have dedicated funds on others that we call Amavulandlela Fund, that we provide to the people with disabilities that are applying for certain funds. So that's why you see even there, when we put the different groupings, we do highlight to say 0 from them or 2, because it's based on the applications. But I'm trying to imagine if how best possible, if it's a spaza that most of them they run by one person, best possible for majority of disabled people to participate in that, because if you are deaf, wouldn't be a struggle to run a spaza shop. I don't know, which means we've got to think of other interventions to accommodate the disability, because it can't be the same intervention, because others are blind, others are deaf, with all the different disabilities. So it does require a detailed thinking, of course, working with the Department of Women, People with Disabilities and Youth in the presidency. We are working with certain associations that are against counterfeit. We are working with DTIC, as we know that DTIC is the one that has the task in terms of the mandate. There's the Consumer Good Council of South Africa also that assists in identifying or tracing the products, where do they come from, so that you are able to determine if they're counterfeit or not. But we have called upon all of them to say we need big businesses to come on board. We can't continue complaining about the many counterfeit products and their voice is not loud enough. They have the resources, so they must work with us closely. We do, when we have our engagements, we do raise those and the impact that they have in the economy. Now, in relation to the issue of the expired goods, if you have checked most of the products that you buy, especially on food consumption and others on retail, except for clothes, you find that it's labeled BB. BB, particular date, best before particular date. We have seen it when we're here in Cape Town doing inspections. And you will find that, I've never seen it, something like that. You get a tray of meat and somebody says best before November 2026. It's meat. You don't know what is added there, if you can believe that. That time, I think it was around February when we were doing the inspections. Now we're beginning to engage the Minister of Health, because it is them that are working on those, although there's a particular challenge, which is what the Western Cape adopted, hence they use most of the BB and others, but we are trying to review or check if there's a possibility of reviewing so that we can go back to expiry date. Because when they say best before if they've just put that sticker, you don't know if how long has the product been on the shelf. So we're trying to look at those as we deal with the many regulatory bodies that are involved. The immediate interventions that we have, as I indicated, the different ministers are looking at beefing up and the partnerships that we are looking at in terms of getting some of the interns to assist in terms of compliance. I am, with your permission, going to hand over to the CEO. Most of the questions were for the CEO. And the DDG on roadshows, but I think I've responded on the DDG. But if there's anything, then you can talk to CEO. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Minister. And thank you, Chair. I'll start with the question on slide 33 and 34, which is the slide that concerns most of the members. I want to say that sometimes we try to provide quite a lot of information. What we were trying to do on slide 33 is to break down the 5,522, which we spoke about under slide 31, where we're saying there is 12,849 spaza shop owners or businesses that have interacted with our system, but 5,522 of them have their applications in progress, which means their applications are not complete. They are in various stages. Hence, honorable members, you see that the number of 4346 doesn't correspond to, or doesn't have a lot of breakdowns if you look across the spreadsheet or the table. And it's mainly because these applications, they are in various stages of being completed. Some have not even gotten to the stage where they put in the money element. Some have not gotten to a stage where they put in the provincial element. Some have not gotten to a stage where they put in whether they are female, black, youth, and. As a result, you find that it says not specified because of those elements. So in reporting it, maybe we need to find a different way of reporting it and not mix it with the complete application. My focus was on slide 34 because slide 34 explains better where we are with transactions that are at the complete stage. And for me, that is where that is the slide that is more important, because on these ones, we know where they're coming from, which province, we know either female, black, youth, you know, we have all the information, but applications are complete, and that reflects then the amount. That's why it would be slightly lesser than the previous slide, because in the previous slide, if all the information was available, I believe that we will be in hundreds of millions in terms of the total quantum that is available. So, honorable member, that is what is causing the difference, but we need to maybe try and explain the 5,000 incomplete transactions or applications differently and not mix them with the complete ones, which is what is causing problems, honorable members, and maybe one should apologize for that. So we will then deal with breaking down that 5,000 in a different manner. For the next presentation, should we be required to come in account? Having dealt with that, I also wanted to deal with the question that talks to funds. There is the shop owners will get the point of sale system, as the members can see that there's a section that talks about equipment. So they will be getting the point of sale system, which will make sure that the money reflects. If people swipe, the money reflects in their bank account, and they're able then to transfer it to their wallets, and they're able to trade. But we need to teach the spaza shop owners also about the issue of banking, that when there is cash, it needs to be banked. There are options that are being explored by the various TCPs in terms of how do we bank the cash, in terms of the services, the drop safe and all that stuff. But those become very expensive, and it would need to be combined for it to work, but you can never know when cash will be available in different places. So we need also to teach the sponsor shop owners that they also need to bank the money for them to have continuous business. But also we would know how the money goes, because the stock will be recorded on the system. If you sell stock to the value of 20,000, but only you've banked 10,000, that's when then the conversation immediately, because the data is live, what is going on with the balance of the money? Why is the money not being banked? But it will take a lot of teachings for us to get to that level. But accountability becomes very key, and there's a transparency of utilizing a system to get to that level of saying, you are not progressing, you are not doing well because you sold stock of this much, but we don't see the money, and we begin to intervene as quickly as possible in those businesses. And we're also going to promote the issue of also people using cards to buy from the sponsor shop owners. I think the ministers spoke about the 350 million, which is administered by NEF. I would not touch on that because the only thing we share with NEF, we're administering the program together. We share that database, the stats of the system, what is there and everything, so that South Africans don't have to apply from different places, but apply from one central point, which we then from there were able to process using the methodologies of each organization to get to the sponsor shop owners, the ultimate goal being the sponsor shop owners being assisted. We definitely, honorable members, do not have an issue in terms of disclosing the shareholding. Is something that we can definitely, we didn't want to write shareholders on the documents, but it's information that we can share with the committee, mainly for protection purposes, and it's information that we can share as early as tomorrow or before the end of the week, because we've got it, we've checked the shareholders, we've done the due diligence, we know who they are, we know, for example, A2Pay, 100% white-owned business, benefiting 45% of the funds, and Ispaza, 100% African-owned business, 100% black, benefiting only 21% of the funds, and Tradeport, 33% of the fund, again, a black-owned, Indian-owned business. We would share, though, the detailed shareholding as our legal team did a detailed due diligence onto this business. I must say that it was very difficult, for example, to when we were going through the due diligence for some of the entities, because they were realizing that they are helping us more at this point in time in getting this program through. But we have what we call, because we're running a lending institution that, as I said, runs both the wholesale lending and the direct lending. We have some of, for example, the DCPs funded, giving them loan, like I won't disclose the amounts, but giving them loans to lend into the space before, so we then treat this for ourselves as a normal lending business. We do go on tender, for example, for things that are not main business of the entity, and that's how then we worked around. As I said, we also assess quite a lot of DCPs, including the likes of your Coca-Cola and so forth, in getting to choose. And we needed to make sure that from a race point of view also, we do have a balance, as I have shown how the shareholding of these entities are. And we also wanted the stronger players in the market, so that when we deliver this, we can then have credibility on this matter. So the point of sale, for example, they are sold, or they will be sold to the sponsor shop at a discount. the discount that is obtained that we've guaranteed from the spaza shop, from these DCPs, will be passed to the spaza shop owners. We are indeed, as the minister said, I mentioned that the whole 150 is for the benefit of the spaza shop owners. So the 150 will go to the spaza shop owners. Our side then is to manage the fees that we'll be paying outside the 150, because our intention is to make sure that the 150 goes. And the example that I was making was that, for example, we pay on average the 9.1%, but it's not for them to consume. Is for them to provide the 6 things that I mentioned: the training, the visit, the assessments, and the likes. And that's what they would do over and above. And as I said, the negotiations became difficult when we were engaging, because it got to a point where some were even saying, when on this 150 they won't be making money. And we said, that's not the point. That's the point. The point is that you don't make money on the 150. But obviously, in the future, they will have a bigger network, and those are the future benefits that we were engaging in exchange for the discounts to flow to the spaza shop and squeezing them for each and every rand and each and every cent. I think I've covered quite. I don't know, Chair, if there's any question that I have not covered, but I wanted to just cover these key ones so that it becomes clear how we do business as an organization and what are these discounts that we've contracted. Or indeed, we've got agreements, Chairperson, with the DCPs. That's why we're at the point where we know what they need to deliver, the reporting, the training, and so that they're able then to account. But also we have a view on their systems, clear view. Anytime we can go in and see what they're doing, who are they managing, how is that going, what stock has gone to who, by when, and what stock has been sold by which client or by spaza shop at any given point in time. And for us, we thought that is very important for us to be able to do. So we've got those performance agreement. And I would acknowledge the issue of the prior to 1994. Definitely, we are we do fund those as the honourable member had indicated in terms of us funding honourable member Modise, that we mustn't forget when we're speaking, and we must speak about those prior to 1994, and I think it's very important. And indeed, I also used to enjoy watching the soccer player that you mentioned playing, and thank you very much for reminding me of those memories. I would leave it there, Chairperson. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. If you could just switch off your mic, please. Thank you very much. There is nobody else that has to respond. I take it. Members, okay, I see Honourable Satoli has her hand up, and Honourable Farmer. That's what I said. If your questions haven't been answered, just indicate to me. Thank you.
No, thank you, Honourable Chairperson. I was just checking on page 34. It says that 838 completed applications. Does it mean that funds were dispersed on this, or what? And then all the meeting regulatory requirements, if I can get clarity on those ones. Okay. Does it 838 completed? It says that, right? So what I need to know is that I get it talks about 838 completed application. Does it mean that the funds have been dispersed in this 838? And then on the issue of the meeting regulatory requirements also. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairperson. Mine is only the last one, the one of how many spaza shops are foreign owned. And also, Chairperson, the question, probably just a follow-up. 838 completed, which took up a total stock of 31.7 million. if the sum is then made that 150 million will only not even cover 4,000 spaza shops.
Thank you very much, Minister. I don't know who you're going to direct to answer the question. CEO, thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, members. I'm just going to talk to the number of how many spaza shops that are foreign owned. We don't have those details. As I'm saying, they're not registered. So we're basing whatever information that we're providing on the Accenture report that said out of the 150,000 spaza shop, about 70% or more are foreign owned, which is why I was saying we were banking on this process that everyone will get into the work that we're doing, and then we get others that must go and visit, and then we will know. But as things stand, unfortunately, we don't have. I know Minister Hlabisa is working on tightening and visiting the councils because it is there where they are registering. He did indicate that he's calling mayors and the other people that are involved. Thank you. The other questions will be responded to by the CEO.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would answer the question about the 31 million. Definitely, because on average, it just took to 37,800 and something per spaza shop, and we do see that at some point the funds will be depleted, but the numbers are very much correct from that in terms of on average it's about 37,800 per spaza shop that they're applying for stock. Obviously, not all of them. Chairperson applies for 40,000, others apply for lower, others apply for that 40,000. The 838, they've met the minimum criteria as set on paper, with the physical verification still need to be done. The reason why we have not rushed into processing is because we've seen it in our normal lending, where, for example, Gauteng just takes a chunk of the money that is allocated, and normally followed by KZN, followed by Western Cape, with Northern Cape and Free State coming in last all the time, and we want to run a fair process that says we now have a view of the applications and there's a fair representation, and only then we'll start the disbursement process. So we have not paid out, but we were discussing with NEF that maybe we should start, but we really want to see fair representation across different provinces. Thank you.
Thank you. If you could switch off again, please. Thank you. Colleagues, members, I think, Honourable Pinar.
Thank you, Chairperson. It's going to be a quick one. Don't worry, colleagues. I know we're all tired. Minister, this one will be for you. We're not actually increasing with this fund we're not increasing the number of South African-owned spaza shops in South Africa. We're not increasing them. The majority, large majority, will still be held by foreigners. We are not necessarily gaining access to the 180 billion rand market for South Africans. What are your goals to improve the ability for South Africans to get more market share? Because at the end of the day, I think that's maybe also one of your goals, isn't it? And unfortunately, how goodwill this fund might be, we're not changing the figures. It's still going to be 95% foreign owned, 5% local owned. Thank you, Chair, that's all.
Thank you very much. Honourable Minister, honourable members, we asked this department to come back with a complete report and give us a bit of transparency on the questions. I think we have received what we asked for, so we thank you for that. But as the chairperson of this committee, I'm asking you, I'm pleading with you that in future where we do engage, that the initial report that this committee receives is presented in the fashion that it was done tonight, because if it had been like it, we wouldn't be sitting here now and costing Parliament extra money for a second meeting, because you know how it works. Everything has to go through the channels and approvals have to be given. We've got to get the transports out here for our members to get back to the different villages. There are still some concerns, the slow disbursement, the high rejection rate, and then I am still very unclear about the selection of the DCPs. And if I heard you correctly, you said that you are able to provide us with a breakdown by a close of business, or was it a breakdown of something else? I came in afterwards. You can answer that. And if that was not the case, then with regard to the DCPs, we need to see who and what that is. And then we'd also like to see a list of all the beneficiaries that have been granted the funding. And then a clear plan on how you're going to assist the non-compliant applicants, especially our informal traders. And then an independent audit of SEDFA's role. I really need to see that, please. And Minister, I'm calling on you, please. This fund cannot become another channel for inefficiency or patronage. We've got to, as the members said, look after the people that are looking after the people in our informal areas. They are the lifeblood, and we need to ensure that they are assisted with the 150 million that has been given to your department. And I'm sure these members will continue their oversight on this fund, and you can be rest assured that it will be done with a hawk's eye. And with that, before I hand over to you, Minister, for your closing remarks, I would just like to ask if the DM would like to say anything, and if she would, the floor is hers, and then over to you, and then after your remarks, members, the meeting will be adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chairperson of the Select Committee. Indeed, the Minister will do the final wrap-up closing remarks. But from my side, as I was here with the last meeting, I just wanted to thank members of the committee for your robust engagement. And I'm sure that will help us as a department to improve in terms of the way we deliver, not only on this program, but many other programs. I believe that any program of government will only succeed if we also play our oversight role where we are, be it in our communities, be it where we are. If we assist government also in doing that oversight role, then together we meet each other somewhere. We spoke a lot about communities that are harboring, sometimes even protecting foreign nationals that are owning in our communities, because this is really if we don't attack it from all angles, we're going to find ourselves that with all the plans that are there, with all the implementation plans that are there, but programs then fall short because our communities were not on board, the special shop owners were not on board, or there are others that were not on board. I really value each and every contribution tonight, and we are encouraged by the level of interest and the level of engagement. And Chairperson, I've got no doubt that it's going to help us moving forward. I also want to thank the DG and the DDG and the and SEDFA for preparing so well, because I was here the last time and I saw not the anger from the members, but the dissatisfaction from the members. And as I'm sitting here now, I must also thank them for going into the details and also giving themselves time to come and respond to members. And I must also thank the Minister for being here tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. DM, Honourable Minister, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair. The Honourable Member says this intervention we are providing is not increasing the number of spaza shop partly true, because if we are saying we're assisting people who are not compliant to be compliant, it means we are adding more to the ones that are compliant. And in the presentation, we did indicate that we've had this program wherein we're providing 10,500. So it's not the first intervention on the spaza shop. But you're correct to say it's not going to make a dent in terms of the market share that is there. And this is why I spoke about the township and rural economic development policy that I said we are finalizing. We are to take it to cabinet now, which will then set up the rules of engagement, because the challenges that are faced by spaza shop are not in isolation of the realities of service delivery in the areas where we're coming from. So we are narrating that story, but we are providing intervention so that even the program that I spoke about, the Township and Rural Enterprise Program, TREP, must respond to the realities. I made an example that through the TREP, we provide financing for spaza shop, for example, or for butcheries. Now, if you understand the value chain of the food industry, you will know that SPAR and others, they survive because they have bigger space, they can order more quantities, which give them access to more discounts, but they will have a deli, so that when the food is about to expire, they put in the deli and they sell to everyone. Now, these are the things, as we continue to engage with the ecosystem, we begin to see that as much as we've crafted some interventions, but we have not looked at the entire holistic approach. So we're beginning to bring all the players on board to say, if we are providing this, let's also look at ABCD so that it becomes profitable and they'll be able to grow from there. I said earlier, one of the challenges as we were doing the consultations, looking at the development of the township and rural economic development policy, was the fact that we now get to understand that the businesses that are operating at that level, they don't have the capability to service the market they have. Now it means we must begin to put instruments in place that must respond to that. And when you do that, automatically there's going to be growth, because the more you incentivize, the more you attend to other challenges, infrastructure, through our shared economic infrastructure program that was put there to say, let's look at the infrastructure challenges in particular areas so that these people have access to certain things. We are incentivizing so that you attract lots of people to come to the space. Now, as we were engaging on these radio interviews, talking about this fund, urging South Africans, DM likes it everywhere, to say they must open the spaza shop, they must occupy the space and all of that. So one caller says, Minister, we see the fund, but are you going to come and protect us when we have opened these businesses? Because when we open, we are subjecting ourselves to high criminal activities because we get to be attacked. Now, you can see it's not just about them opening the business. So it's all these other societal challenges that are faced with, which is why the township policy that I'm talking about looks at that ecosystem that has to be functional, that when Minister Mkhunu does deployment to a particular police station, let's look at the economic activities. When the Minister of Human Settlements goes and say, we are building here, how is it human settlements without addressing the economic needs, the needs in terms of demand of the food that is required by the people, but addressing the crime, but making South Africans own up in their economy, not to be spectators by waiting for government to come and fight crime in our areas. And this is one of the approaches that as government we have taken to say, we want to really build an active citizenry that must take interest, including entrepreneurs participating in the development of the law. Because most of the bylaws, as we talk about route tapes that we see there, it's because entrepreneurs have not participated in the making of the law. We only allow lawmakers to make the law without understanding the concept of entrepreneurship. And that's why now we're bringing everybody. We have partnered with all the deans of commerce in the 23 universities to say, come on board, you are providing education. What kind of education? This is why. Again, to respond to the challenge, then as the department, we are in the process of finalizing the entrepreneurship strategy for the country. Instill it when kids are still at school, because we know that they are able to take and sell lollipops, but how do you nurture that talent from the onset, not to wait for someone to be unemployed with a qualification and then say, you can choose entrepreneurship as an option. So we're trying to bring those. We've partnered with some banks. Once that we finalize the strategy approved, then we're going to be running some programs with the Department of both higher education and basic education. Already we've established centers for entrepreneurship in the TVETs and some universities to bring the entire ecosystem that must be fully functional in all the areas. So this is what we would want to see. As I said, spaza shop, they have to grow to become not only wholesalers, but they must also own the distribution channels. And the only way to do that is to provide them with all the relevant support that they need. The funding policy for MSMEs seeks to address that gap. South Africa has a credit gap of 350 billion rands according to the IMF. That's the 2020 report, which is 5 years older now. That tells you if we are still sitting here, we're talking about the budget that we have, which is 2.3 billion, we're still far. Even if you look at what NEF has, this is why you see Minister Parks talking about the transformation fund, because in our own funding policy that was approved and got support from the industry, we had proposed the establishment of a fund of funds to try and minimize the credit gap. And this is why we are urging the members of parliament to really support it and mobilize people to rally behind it. But as the chair was saying, it's important to make sure that when there are these funds, there are cleaner, smoother processes that are safeguarding the investment not to go to the wrong hands. Because with all the great intentions, there's always the devil that is waiting outside to exploit what we are trying to do. So we're saying we will try from government, but we also need those that are beneficiaries or lawmakers and other stakeholders to participate in it. So the last aspect is the business licensing policy that has been approved by government. I know I've approved it to be gazetted. I don't know if the team has already gazetted. We will be introducing the business licensing bill, trying to repeal the Businesses Act. Now we're trying to address the gap that the chair was also asking about in terms of the capacity of the municipality. We're inserting ourselves as the department to have some authority on guiding certain things with clear interventions that must be put in place. Thank you, honorable members. You have really assisted us with the questions, and thank you for chasing us away so that I get an opportunity to come here, because I wouldn't have had this opportunity now. We're looking forward to future engagements. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Minister. I know I said I'm closing off to you, but please afford me the opportunity to say thank you very much to the committee staff, 2 ladies and 1 gentleman sitting here after hours, and they all have families, same as the departmental officials. So on behalf of this committee, thank you very much. The meeting's adjourned.